Very serious situation happening over at Spotify. Let's set the lay of the land here. Get paid less and we will tip the scales for you. He wants you to be talking about the fact that you don't like that it looks like TikTok. Every minute that you spend talking about, oh my God, Spotify added video features, blah, 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 the less time you are talking about payola. Why does he want you saying, I'm sick and tired of every app morphing into the same thing. Spotify is not a social media app. It's not meant to look like one. He wants you to talk about this because the more you talk about this, the more you're not saying Spotify is modern payola. Back in the day, radio stations, it was illegal for a record label or an artist to go to a radio station or a group of radio stations and say, pay $1 million and you have to play our song 3 times an hour or whatever. That type of thing was illegal. So they created this thing called payola, where instead of paying the radio stations directly, they would pay this third party, an individual who could be somebody potentially working for the radio station or unofficially working for the radio station, or just in general could influence what the radio station would play. So there was money being passed in exchange for getting played on the radio. That's all you need to know. And they just created a way to subvert it called payola. Instead of paying the radio stations directly, they found some way to like go around it. Some might say this guy's a shilling for Spotify, trying to say big things like this. But of course, my point when talking about payola is that this guy talks about Billboard. I'm not saying that Billboard participates in payola, but I'm saying that legacy music industry gonna legacy music industry. Spotify has attempted to make it easier for artists to profit from the service by adding features like a tip jar and the ability to sell tickets and merchandise via the platform. We're saying Spotify has attempted to make it easier for artists to profit from the service. No, Spotify is attempting to take more pieces of your pie, aka they will get a cut of your tip jar. They will get a cut of your ticket sales. They will get a cut of your merchandise. It's not to give you more profit. You can sell merch anywhere. You can have a tip jar anywhere. You can have a Patreon. You can sell tickets on other sites. Spotify is just making it so you do it through their platform so they get their cut. More controversially, in 2020, Spotify launched an initiative it described as promotional recording royalty rate that lessens an artist's payout per stream in exchange for an algorithm nudge that ensures the track is more likely to be played in the platform's autoplay and radio formats. So literally, they are saying to artists, we're going to pay you less, but more people are going to see your music. And I guess to some extent, that's probably worth it for a lot of artists, right? It's just kind of a shitty practice for a company. I think most people depict these algorithms, and most CEOs and company owners, tech bros, depict these algorithms as like, oh, it's just optimized to know what you like and send people in the directions that they want to go based on all the data we have on them. It's part of the machine. But you give the game away when you say shit like an algorithm nudge. If you have control, if you can bump that algorithm in one direction or the other for a specific artist, obviously it's not just like a machine basing stuff on data on certain listeners' behaviors. So that's crazy. An artist advocate says they're saying we can manipulate the users to boost your plays. That's a confession to the manipulation of consumer behavior through the algorithm, and they're very conscious of it. Exactly. A new kind of payola. This time, instead of like a person that kind of doesn't work for a radio station getting $1 million and then passing that on to the radio station for the record labels to get your music played, now it's like, okay, we're going to pay you a little bit less per stream, but we'll give you the nudge. It's dirty, right? Brian M. Johnson is Spotify's head of artists and industry partnerships, and he spent the last few months overseeing the Loud and Clear project. He calls the initiative an opportunity to provide some transparency to the artists about how the streaming economy works. Asked about the accusations that its promotional recording royalty rate amounted to payola, sacrifice income in order to gain more spins, that's what we just talked about, Johnson says that on the contrary, the program allows smaller artists without money in the bank to have more say in which songs they want to emphasize at any given time. Artists and labels, Johnson says, can identify music that's a priority for them in our system as a signal to the algorithm that determines personalized listening sessions such as radio and autoplay. What this does is allows our algorithms to account for what's important to the artist. That is just a big, clean, pretty way of saying, yeah, you can take less money. We'll listen to you when you tell us, oh, we want to push this song. Otherwise, we're just not going to listen to you and good luck. The last time that a major music industry issue was at the forefront of the conversation and that even attracted attracted the attention of the United States Congress? It was the monopoly held by Ticketmaster. And why did this become a congressional issue? Why didn't this just become a thing? People have talked about Ticketmaster forever. Like, oh my God, it's so annoying. They have all these fees. I can't buy tickets anywhere else. They essentially have like a internal form of scalping where you can buy tickets and then just resell them on the Ticketmaster platform. Ticketmaster is of course okay with you scalping on their platform because they get a cut of that. How does this relate to the Spotify issue? Well, when you piss somebody like Taylor Swift off, not just Taylor Swift, but Taylor Swift fans who are very vocal and will very much bring attention to an issue that is legally dubious, potentially illegal, like Ticketmaster's monopoly, it garners the attention of Congress, who can enact laws to actually say, no, Ticketmaster, what you're doing is illegal. We have to break you up. We have to fundamentally dismantle your business so that it is no longer illegal. This only happens when a ton of attention comes to something. So flash forward to our friend Daniel, CEO of Spotify, rolling out new features. Why does he want you saying, I'm sick and tired of every app morphing into the same thing? Spotify is not a social media app. It's not meant to look like one. He wants you to talk about this because the more you talk about this, the more you're not saying Spotify is modern payola. Spotify is doing something illegal. And the reason we're not saying that is because it's not like Ticketmaster where we're getting scammed out of a bunch of money. We're just getting scammed out of our cultural and, existence, like our musical consumption. If we had to spend hundreds of dollars like on a Ticketmaster ticket, it would obviously enrage more people. It should enrage you just as much that they're like, we're going to tip the scales in favor of major label artists and fuck you independent artists. Good luck getting attention. You need thousands and millions of songs to generate any revenue over here. Oh, and by the way, take a lower royalty rate and we will promote your product more. That is the literal definition of payola. And the longer you don't say that, the longer you do not point this out, the longer you're not on Twitter complaining about that, and the longer you're on Twitter complaining that they're making their app look like TikTok, Daniel wins. Because if people were actually talking about payola and shouting it from the rooftops, Spotify is modern day payola, eventually Congress couldn't ignore it in the same way that they were unable to ignore the Swifties. And I don't even know what came out of this, but I guess it's still ongoing. It definitely deserves some scrutiny, and governments are, after all, meant to protect its people from things like this. But of course, in a capitalist organization of the economy, you have a government that is protecting people like Daniel Ek, that is protecting people like Ticketmaster, that is protecting people like Daddy Jeff Bezos. So they will not speak up until their fans become enraged and they are forced to speak up. It doesn't matter if an independent artist speaks up because they don't have the same leverage as a major label artist. And the major labels, which I'm sure lobby the government, will do their best to kind of suppress the conversation and put a lot of money into things. And it's just like another example of how money and capital will, of course, prevail over all the other means. Doesn't matter if what Spotify is doing is illegal. So yes, this is a new experiment, as I will be experimenting all month. This was just on my mind. I hope you enjoyed this kind of like breaking news style live stream segment.